Building Blocks 2025 in Tel Aviv. The future of tech.
I want to start with you, Tal. Um, as a VC, as a partner at Collider Venture, which is, I guess, the only Israeli native Web3 VC, um, startups encounter a lot of difficulties in this area, and I think that you have a few things to say about how startups should work in this environment. So, if you could please share your thoughts with us.
Thanks. Like there are many builders here, probably like most of them technical people, and regulation is not very like intuitive. Like I'm sure that most of you like ask what I have to do with regulation. But in crypto, regulation is integral part of the business. I think it's different from other fields. And like whenever I evaluate a company and I speak with the founders and I ask about regulations, I really expect like the founders to give like a very good answers about regulations, the same as I expect when they talked about the market, the competitors, and the product.
But it's not like that in other fields, right?
It's not in other fields. Regulation is integral part, and I think in like mainly in three areas. When you talk about regulation, it's like it's a big issue. But in crypto, when we speak about regulation, we mainly speak about taxes, especially if the company issuing a digital asset. Taxes can be a very big issue that I think should be taken care from day one. Securities are basically laws that comes to protect investors from fraud and manipulations, and because digital assets are traded in public markets, that's relevant to crypto. And third thing is like I would say banking regulations or licenses that relates to the business, and those areas are very very important to any startup, and it should be taken care of in the founders level, and it's very important. And I would say like the main tips for me to founders that try to tackle regulations and how to handle this is like the first thing: do not delegate this to external lawyer. Really understand like the legal issues and regulations that related to your product.
Can you please elaborate on this? Because a lot of startups start by saying, okay, so we'll get an attorney and he'll do the whole thing that we need, and we don't need to get into it. But we see in this area that startups really have to know the business themselves, have to know the law itself.
Yeah, I think it's very clear in crypto because, like, for example, if the business need to get a license and it takes like 2 years and you cannot go to the market for 2 years, so basically regulation impacts like the product, the commercial aspects of the product, and it's super super important. I would say that another tip for you is do not spend money on regulation before you raise. This is very important. Like as investors, when you come, especially as an early stage investor, I don't really care if you have a license or you have like a legal opinion. What I care is that you, the founders, really knows how to, really know the material and knows how to navigate the complexities. By the way, it's the same with the product. I don't care if you have a ready product. I just want you to understand like the path of how to build a product. So this is, I would say, like the second tip: do not spend money on regulation before you raise money. And another thing is about regulation. Today, you have so much information available on the internet and professionals that can help you basically for free to understand what are the consequences of the product. So yeah.
All right. So I want to actually a lot of it is being. I want to say that that a lot of information is available online. As you said, you can browse the A16Z website, which is an enormous ocean of of knowledge. And of course, iCryptoforum.org, the Israel Crypto Forum website, in which we have all of our documents there, so you could just browse and just try to learn by yourself. Avital, so Tal was talking about regulation, but it's not only what you can do or what you can't do. It sometimes even goes to really actually hardcore licensing.
Yeah, that's true. But first off, I want to say while there is a lot of free information, we hopefully still need lawyers. Uh, I'm a bit biased, but you know. Um,
No, I think this is something. First of all, there are a lot of lawyers in this area, but I think that as much as you'll have free information, the let's say the speciality, the knowledge of those lawyers who actually know the law, who actually are updated, will shine above others. Because what I see is that sometimes you have like this layer of people who are saying, yeah, nobody knows everything, you should come to me and just find out what happens. But if you actually look into it, then actual experts like you guys, have a certain stand that stands out in the crowd.
uh, yeah, for sure. And I think it's not only licensing. We should discuss compliance in a general form. And speaking about compliance, I think builders they love to start building. And I loved your pitch, but many times we have, I mean, builders come to us a bit too late, and they usually just dive right in, and they come to the lawyers a bit later. So I think it's important to really come from the beginning. I think there is a difference. Like Tal said, I wouldn't apply for a license right from the start, but I think consulting a lawyer at the early stages in the process of designing your product or getting some initial advice to understand the map, to understand the market you're working at is important. Uh, you know,
Because otherwise you might tackle some difficulties on the way ahead.
Yeah, so I think you have a few benefits to starting early. First, the basic stuff. You need to apply to laws and regulations in order to avoid fines and stuff like that. That's obvious. But you also want to mitigate your risk, right? Before, if you uh, identify it right from the beginning, the possible risks, you're able to mitigate them at the beginning and maybe save money from costly disputes later on. And I think Tal maybe usually when I speak to builders, I'm talking about the enhancing confidence with the investors. So I think Tal said it right here. At least from my experience, and I think maybe Tal can expand later, investors are more inclined to invest in projects that show and demonstrate they have a clear compliance strategy ahead. They don't need to have a license right away. They don't need to have all of their policies right away, but they need to understand the environment they are working at. They need to understand the risks, and they need to be minded to those issues.
But I'm thinking about the builder. I'm thinking about the builders themselves. They come out of the university, or in Israel they come out of the army service, and they're like, okay, so we're going to build something really neat, and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. And I think that most people don't actually know that there are laws concerning that.
Yes, so one of the challenges, and it's an actual challenge because blockchain regulation is like no other. It's advances very quickly. It's complicated. The decentralized nature of this space makes things even more complicated than usual. You have different regulatory approaches in different nations. Some nations have no regulatory approaches at all, which makes it even more difficult. Uh, I don't want to use names, but you just heard the chief economist a few minutes ago. But I think first of all, there is a lot of room for optimism because there is a lot of information out there, but we are seeing a trend in the last few years. The U.S. and the shifts that Trump brought with his election. MiCA is a major issue in the EU. You can criticize the way the EU decided to establish its regulation, but it is there. It's a crypto regulation. It's possible to do so. You have countries worldwide that have established regulatory regimes. I don't know, Switzerland, Dubai, we just heard. There is a specific virtual asset regulator. I think even last month they gave a DeFi license. So, yeah.
Okay, Professor Alone. So I think when we were talking about regulation, we were always talking about what we're allowed and not allowed to do. But I think that in in recent weeks, what we saw was that nation states are actually getting into Bitcoin. You had a very serious paper written about National Bitcoin Reserve. We saw the National Bitcoin Reserve being established in the United States and the national stockpile. Why do governments go into this direction, and what does it say about the crypto industry?
So I think governments are becoming increasingly friendly towards Bitcoin and crypto in general as they see it as the new engine of growth. It's an entire industry that will have multiples of impact economically. In addition, Bitcoin in specific is a particularly good uh, digital asset. And notice I don't use money, I use the word digital asset because I don't believe Bitcoin is money. I believe it's a digital asset, investment grade digital asset. And the United States has led the way by developing a sovereign wealth fund that is based in Bitcoin, including other digital assets. Before that, I lived in Norway for 7 years. Norway has probably one of the most successful sovereign wealth fund in the world, and it's invested in all sort of assets, including real estate and stocks, to secure future generations. And the United States is going to do that with digital assets and other assets. And I believe that in Israel, we have a need to start thinking about our future generations. Instead of continuing raising the taxes and lowering government services, we need to think about how to leverage the funds that we already have. For example,
But Ilan, I want to focus you for a second. Why do governments need that reserve? Why do governments need to hold on to some Bitcoin from the, let's say, for the global stockpile of Bitcoin? Why do nation states needs to have Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency on their balance sheet?
so I wanted to coach the conversation, not just in terms of crypto, but in terms of all as savings accounts for the nation, right? Governments need to think about future generations, future needs, infrastructure development, setting the base for industrial development. So one way to do that is through cryptocurrencies and through Bitcoin in particular. The basic assumption behind all of that is that Bitcoin is one of the best assets in the world because of all the things that we know, like scarcity and growing demand and so on. And then the question is, should Israel, for example, has $220 million in the central bank sitting in fiat in US dollars. Now, this is a problem because US dollars go down in value every year. Our purchasing power of US dollar goes down in value because of inflation. So the question is, should the government, either through a wealth fund or through the central bank, hold some Bitcoin? Now, it turns out that Iran holds it, Dubai holds it, Qatar holds it, United Arab Emirates is holding it, and they're developing this industry. Potentially, some enemies of ours are holding it. So there could be a potential that if Bitcoin goes up significantly in value, our enemies will have a lot more purchasing power than us, which will put us in a, let's say, disadvantaged position. So our arguments in front of the government leaders of Israel, and we've met with many of them, is that Israel does need to make an investment in Bitcoin, perhaps also, by the way, in gold. It turns out we are one of the few central banks in the world that doesn't have any gold. We hold all our wealth in dollars. And one of the problems, not just our enemies, is also our friends. Well, we could see what happened when the US decided to levy some sanctions against Russia and held $300 billion of Russian assets hostage. Right? We don't want to be in that position that perhaps a less friendly administration comes into power into the United States and decides that, oh, Israel cannot use the dollar reserves to even buy weapons.
I think that if they won't let us buy weapons, I think the problem would be a lot bigger than just how to
And we saw that during the Biden
But,
administration, and probably if Kamala would have been elected, we would have continued to see that.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let's go back to crypto. So Omer Yaniv, you're the founder and the co-CEO of Psagot Equity. Um, so what are you saying about tokenization solutions? We're talking about companies who want to tokenize their assets, who want to tokenize, let's say, everything. But you as as an equity fund, you have a special stand in this arena.
Yes, so Psagot Equity is a subsidiary of the Psagot Investment House, as a very, very regulated investment house, which is used to regulation for many, many years. We are now enabling our clients a lot of, I will call it some gate solutions. So basically, what we do for our clients is gap the 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 needs between the real world and the digital asset world. For example, tokenization, we have uh, a bunch of clients that we are working on project with those clients where Psagot Equity, which is a trust services company, we hold various types of assets. We have a big activity in holding shares for Israeli employees, which is under Israeli regulation. But from this activity, we also hold tokens for companies that are issuing tokens for their employees, and we are holding those tokens with international partners and actually allowing companies to grant token to employees and to those employees to exercise the token and actually achieve a situation where they can really meet the value of this token by selling the token, by converting it into fiat, and by actually receiving the money in their bank account. When we are looking on tokenization, which is projects that we are currently working on, we are looking on the connection of taking real assets from the real world, let's say just private equity, for example, holding it by us, by an institutional firm, which that's brings a lot of certainty to the market, and then issuing tokens in compared to those private shares.
But you know, in a decentralized world, what is the importance of a custodian? What is the importance of a fund like yourself?
Yeah, so basically what we allow is to have real asset being reflected as tokens or as digital assets. But as always, when you want a real asset to be reflected as a digital asset, you need to be sure that this real asset is being safeguarded by somebody that can be trusted and is by himself regulated to hold these real assets. So we actually allowed and we are actually working with some early stage builders in order to enable them this bridge and enable them a situation where they can act in the digital asset world, but present to their investors or to the community or to people that are going to use their solutions that everything that is connected to the real world is being supervised by an entity like Sagot, which is for us, this is a big step in how to bridge the gap between the old world, I will call it, to the new world.
Is this like bridging the banking problem, the debanking problem that we've heard? You know, like a few months ago, when we were talking, me and Tal were talking about the banking problems that we have here in Israel. We were saying, well, it's a problem, but it's mainly an Israeli problem. And then we saw the Trump administration coming up front, and then we saw the Senate debate at the beginning of February, which actually floated the problem of debanking in the United States, which means that the problem that we've been experiencing is not only an Israeli problem; it's actually a global problem. But do you see yourself as a solution for this problem, or we need a bigger solution, and then you'll play a different role?
Yeah, so we are the current solution, I would call it, but we do need a bigger solution because that's we have a large practice of being able to view wallets, to view the blockchain, and to actually estimate what are the risk of receiving money that is originated from cryptocurrency activity. So this is something that we have quite a large practice with. We are working with the biggest law firm in Israel and the biggest accounting firm in Israel in doing so. But this is like a local solution, and it's not,
Mhm.
and we are still solving it case by case, as opposed to a situation that you can solve it just, you know, by setting up a bunch of rules that would say how you can receive money that is originated from digital currency.
Elon, you have something important
Yeah,
to
when
say.
you said there might be a banking problem, I think this is a huge problem in Israel because the biggest problem is forget about the fact that you can't open a company that has crypto as its base. Forget about the fact that you can't transfer crypto. Forget about the fact that you can custody crypto in the bank. But there's no competition. So Israeli banks are among the most profitable banks in the world, and they don't
Yeah,
need to because
we're talking about $12 billion a year in profit
it's
in a 10
incredible.
million people market.
So in a sense, what the
If
regulator,
anybody wants to open a bank, please just open a bank in Israel, please. Thank
well,
you.
101 that opened the bank, they didn't come to break the market and to offer digital services or to offer cheap services. They came to share the market. And the problem right now is that the regulator needs to break the monopoly that the banks have and allow foreign competitors. And if they do, all the services will get better and cheaper.
Okay, so okay, Tal, just add, and then I want to ask you. I want you all to think about the next question. The next question is, what regulation do you think stands out, and that we in Israel or everybody else in the world should copy? So just think about it, and Tal, on the meanwhile, just say what he had to
Yeah.
say.
Like I want to balance a bit the discussion because like we can speak about those problems for days, but eventually like builders need to focus on on the product, on the market. Like regulation is a big noise that they need to minimize, and I think it's a good opportunity maybe to speak about things that founders should pay attention and should make sure that are done correctly. um, I would say things that I've seen in the past few months is like founders start to build something, goes to investors after like a few meetings, get an agreement, and then I see many times that those agreements include one-sided sections that in favor of the VCs, and I'm saying this as a VC. Um, I will give examples. One of them is anti-dilution, which I think is very bad in terms of sections and also short lockups. And those things can really prevent founders from raising the next rounds. So I would say for all founders, just push back anything that is basically breaking the alignment of interest between the founders and the investors, and make sure you're taking care of this. Another thing I think builders should use more is board of directors of companies. I know that in the crypto industry, like most of the companies do not have boards, but this is a very important tool to basically address regulatory issues, but many other challenges that the company will face down the road. A very important thing to bear in mind that a board of directors that comprised by the founders, the investors, and maybe one other professional is need to think first of all about the interest of the company and not the interest of the investor, for example. So this is a very important tool that I hope founders will use more. I think it's very important for the board to meet like every quarter to speak about the challenges of the company. And in our portfolio, for example, companies that work with the board, I think much more successful than the one that are not working with their boards. And I think this is also another take for founders to adopt.
I think what you're saying is actually, please, guys, or everyone, grow up. That's mainly the thing that
Yeah.
you're saying.
I think those practice like we see them a lot in the traditional Web 2 market,
Yeah.
but there is a reason for them to
them,
exist,
yeah.
and I think we definitely need to adopt them.
Okay, so we at the Crypto Companies Forum have established the public committee, sort of an Israeli task force, in order to create a crypto strategy for Israel. We've been doing that for a while. I guess that we will have we will have the media report in about a month, and I think that the conclusion will come in about July when the American task force will finish his process too. But in the process of learning, we saw two places in the world that actually adopted crypto regulation, which is highly advanced and actually impacted the market. One of them is Singapore. One of them is Switzerland. So I want to ask the honorable panel, what is the regulation that you saw implemented in somewhere in around the world that is actually made the market flourish?
So maybe I'll say a few words about the macro environment. First of all, that crypto companies are, generally speaking, global companies. They're multinational enterprises. They might get their funding in Dubai, they might do their R&D in Israel, and their customers might be in the United States. And as a result, the founders and the entrepreneurs of these companies can choose and pick and choose whatever countries they need for the different value-added activities. So as far as Israel is concerned, our desire, I think, is to internalize as many of these activities so that we can internalize the value added that these companies bring. So they're already, as you mentioned, wonderful jurisdictions for crypto, and that includes Singapore and Switzerland and
But what is the
in
main
Dubai.
what is the main thing that they've done that actually makes them stand out?
So there are various best practices we can take from each one of them. And I think that probably the leader will be the United States at the end with the crypto workforce that they have, because they will want to make the United States the crypto capital. And one of the ideas that Trump has is to have no income tax on American made tokens and coins. And that will shift overnight the entire industry to the United States.
Avital.
So I think you have two main regulatory approaches you can take. The first one is to establish the designated crypto framework like MiCA, a comprehensive regulation. It gives you certainty. It might be too difficult to build under the circumstances, but at least you get the certainty you need to know where do you stand. The other approach is use the existing laws and regulation and just apply to new technologies. Switzerland is a model for that. So I think for us in Israel, it doesn't matter which approach we choose. We just need to choose one, because as of today, you have too many regulators. If you're an Israeli crypto company, you need to go to the tax authority, to the Bank of Israel, to the capital markets authority, to the securities authorities. It's too many regulators. They don't speak the same language. They don't use the same terminology, and sometimes they look at things differently. So I think the bottom line is we just need to choose one approach and follow it.
Yeah, so I will just mention Switzerland as well. We have a lot of practice of working with Swiss banks, and I think, like, just connecting to what Avital just said, is just the big advantage over there is that all the regulators are working are aligned to the crypto regulation or to the digital currency regulation in Switzerland. So you'd have banks that are allowing to receive fiat that is originated from crypto and know how to work with entities that are working in this environment. I would say, we are talking about builders here, so for us, seeing this environment over there, if I were a builder today, I would definitely consider starting building over there, because there's a lot of things that are already solved over there that will take a long time to be solved in other jurisdictions.
Tal, and then we'll take two questions from the crowd. No worries. Don't worry about this little green thing. Yeah, you can write you can write the questions or just ask me. Anyhow, Tal.
I think creating a framework that basically clarifies for investors what are the taxes they need to pay when they invest in Israeli digital assets. That's something that we work on a lot. I think it's pretty crazy, but it's not clear for someone that is not living in Israel how much tax you need to pay when you invest in Israeli companies that issue digital assets. And I think it really prevents from Israeli investors and investors worldwide to invest in the space. And obviously, when there will be more investors in Israel, there will be more companies in Israel, more startups in Israel. So I think this is something that we need to fix very, very soon.
I think that we sometimes we say it on panels, but a lot of things we needed to say a lot of more things about time and everything. But I think that there are a lot of more things that we need to say about this stuff. So actually, I would like every one of you to come to the podcast to Ansha Bitcoin, and we'll invite you. And I think especially what you said is really it's really something very, very, very important that you should elaborate on, because when you're putting it out and then you're like, yeah, I had a podcast about it, just listen to me talk about it for half an hour, and then you'll have the notion of what you need to do. I think this is something that we need to get the knowledge out there. I think that a lot of barriers that entrepreneurs and builders have can be set aside if we'll just free the knowledge and let the knowledge out. So thank you. Questions from the crowd? No? Okay. You raised your hand? No, you didn't. Oh, anyhow. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to the members of the panel. Thank you to Avital Chaitovich. And thank you to Tal Shalom, Omer Yaniv, and Professor
Thank you, Neil.
Ilan Alon. Thank you very much.
Building Blocks 2025 in Tel Aviv.